Hello, I'm Brigantia, Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Friday, and welcome to Storyteller's Corner. We've been going through a lot. There's all kinds of crap going on in the world, so I wanted to have a little video series in which I would recommend movies or stories that I find particularly uplifting and cheerful, and that just renews the spirit. I'm a firm believer in the great power of storytelling. I was deeply moved when I watched the 2000 miniseries of Arabian Nights, in which the storyteller, who was like this friend and counselor to the main character, Scheherazade, he said that people needed stories more than bread itself. It teaches us how to live and why. And I think that's very true. This is why we go to our stories. This is why people argue about fictional characters and what goes on in the narrative. It's why mythology has, even, when we're not sure, just how literal or how figurative the mythology is, it's why it just sinks its hooks into our soul. It's because we do need these stories. We need them for inspiration. We need to see what resonates, and we need to see what sorts of things attract us and what we want to grow towards. So, this week I have a very, very nerdy recommendation, and I would recommend a rewatch of the Star Wars movies. Particularly the original trilogy. The reason for this is because one of the main themes of Star Wars is that ordinary people who had, just kind of ordinary lives, who were going about their business, they had the capacity to oppose an overpowering, far-reaching, very well-funded empire who just had their tentacles into absolutely everything. But instead of losing hope and saying, "Oh, there's nothing we can do," or because I don't think I'll be able to win this fight in my lifetime, therefore I'm not going to stand up and oppose it. These were people who said, "This is intolerable. I'm not putting up with you, and so I'm going to do something useful about it." And of course, then we have the rebellion fighting against the empire and people taking a stand and being taken and swept away from their ordinary lives and being part of something that is very restorative and extraordinary, just because they thought that being tyrannized was an indecent way to exist and that no one should tolerate it. If you'll notice that when you see pictures of the Rebel Alliance, particularly in Return of the Jedi, you will see, you have a lot of different species there. People obviously come from different planets. They had different original walks of life. These are people who might not have had anything particularly in common with each other until they came to work together in common cause. And I just find this base idea incredibly inspiring right now. Because for people who do want to see a restoration of the Republic, like they did in Star Wars, because, we are starting to find common cause with people with whom we don't necessarily agree with absolutely everything, but we can agree on one thing, is that we are supposed to be a free people. We deserve better than to be tyrannized, and this big overarching government is acting wrongly, and it's up to us to stop them. Now, thankfully, we still have options at the voting booth, and we can still do things, hopefully, through a civil process, and it won't come to actual open civil warfare. But nevertheless, we do need some of that rebel spirit. I think that the spirit of the rebellion in Star Wars and the spirit of the resistance and in the sequel trilogy, I think that's something that we can really strongly resonate. We need a little bit of that, because that spirit reminds us of what the American spirit really is. It is about telling authority, you have limits. It's about saying you can't just do whatever. People are not disposable. You can't just treat people any which way. There are limits. People have rights. People get to live their lives. People are entitled to do this. And if you decide to prevent people from doing that, well, I'm going to start getting in your way. Yes, I might get hurt in the process, but it's still worth it, because I'm fighting for a world in which, despite all the messiness and all the problems and all the challenges we might contend with, at least it would be a free world. And I think that it would be a very restoring message for all of us right now. So, despite some of the shortcomings of the movies, which I don't think I can find it within my soul to discuss the rise of Skywalker even now. There's still good stuff. There's still good nuggets, and it does still remain true to the theme that ordinary people can do extraordinary things in extreme circumstances, and that some of us do have hidden talents. We might discover that we have a strong aptitude for something that can be very helpful in restoring freedom and having greater balance in our lives, and just being able to live as a human being should live without being, stamped down upon. So, that's my slightly rambly movie recommendation for this week. Come back next week and I'll have another idea, because I think it is important that we start feeding our minds, not only with the bad stuff that's happening, but feeding ourselves with ideas of things that can make it better, things that will help us find our courage, and things that just remind us that we do have things that are worth fighting for, and that even if we find ourselves making sacrifices along the way, that it serves a purpose, it's worth it, and um, essentially we that we don't suffer in vain. We're not suffering just to suffer, and we're not suffering without hope. If we are struggling, at least we're struggling towards a better end. So let me know what you think of that. I guess I will see you in the next one. Bye.